perfect. I don't know anything about you other than a brief glimpse of your LinkedIn and your website. And so maybe you start with introducing yourself. What do you do? And yeah, how do you spend your time? And what do you do? What's the money maker and what gets you going every day?
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as what I do for my job, I consider myself a confidant. I'm a confidant to female entrepreneurs, celebrities, and influencers. And what do I mean by confidant is like, you know how the major kings and queens always had someone that they went to when they were dealing with something or trying to make a big decision. They
Mm-hmm.
confided in one person that was like their person that was closest to them. And I'm that person for a lot of really powerful, badass women that they come to me when they're working through something or going through something or want to process something. And we go through what we need to go through, and they come on the other side with more clarity and better understanding for what they want and desire so they can go get more of what they want. So that's the job that I do right now.
And is it career like specific, or you like mix of a psychologist, health specialist? Like what's your skill set?
Yeah, it's all of the above. I started with health, my journey with personal training, and then I got into more internal health. And then as far as like inflammation and digestive health, but I've since put those things on the back burner and more have them as a back pocket kind of thing for myself when I need to reference them. But I work almost entirely with the mental and emotional space now with these women.
And, super cool. And my first instinct when you say it's specifically to women and you're a good looking dude, like it seems like just a way to like a incredibly effective way to pull in chicks. But how did you get into like obviously that says much more about me than it does you. But uh, um, I am happily married and have a beautiful little girl, so I'm not pulling chicks, just envious. But
Yeah, no, it's I think that's dude, that's amazing. And you know, it's really interesting because as I'm going through this, I'm learning so much more about women. So I'm befriending so many more. I'm getting to know more at a much deeper level. And so selfishly for me, it's kind of cool because it allows me to be able to understand women at a deeper level for me and my own intimate relationships.
mhm.
So in regard to that, it's awesome to be able to befriend some really incredible women and to learn more about women through the process of interacting with them, and then being able to have that for myself to understand more in my intimate relationship. So I 100% see what you're saying, and I've definitely gained a lot in the regard of benefiting my intimate relationships through this experience.
Awesome. Great way to put it. A smooth comeback from my horribly insensitive remarks. Um,
I love it.
awesome. And do you it's exclusively with women, or like that's just your niche, but you're open to men also
Yeah,
being
yeah. So
seeking confidence?
I started both pretty equally, primarily starting with mostly men and then more women as of the last year and a half. But I have decided to niche down to specifically women. However, like you said, there are a few men that slip through the cracks. Uh, the men that do, it's mostly men that want to get into coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing this for a long time, and they want to understand how to be able to get into this game and be successful at it. And so the guys that I am coaching are primarily ones that want to learn how to coach, not necessarily the primary confidant demographic that I was referring to earlier. So the
Got it.
guys that I have are mostly in that space, but it's almost entirely women. I think it's like 85% women right now.
Awesome. I guess that's how you got in touch with Mayor. I mean, clicked with Mayor on you guys met on a ski trip.
Yeah. Yep. We went on a ski trip. We talked a little bit, and sounds like he's going to be an incredible coach. So I'm
Ma-
excited to see what he
Mayor's
ends
my
up getting into.
he's my coach. He's a great friend and even I mean great coach and even better friend. Yeah, Mayor, what type of questions do you have?
It's funny because like he was mentioning that like 85% are women and the other 50% are not so much men that he's helping unlock specific things that he is with women, but way more men that want to become more coaching type and kind of figuring out the obstacles and the ways to navigate through it, which is exactly what I was asking kind of questions to Keyen when I first met him in Montana. it was exactly those things. I was like, wow, it seems like, you know, you've figured out a way to present yourself in a way where you feel comfortable and influential and beneficial to people. And I was like, that was exactly like where I was going through. I was like trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do we navigate this space to get there? Um, but yeah, I mean, we met Keyen, did not know he was going to be on the trip. He kind of popped up, and I was like, okay, this is a refreshing face from everything else that's just around us. And yeah, we just kind of hit it off. The question I specifically had is working with women specifically. Um, you did mention that it gives you a better understanding of, you know, their inner workings. As like, you know, there's so many books on like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Like we're separate people. We're living on the same earth, but like a totally different type of existence. Have you like in your recent years working specifically with women, have you seen like a major difference of kind of obstacles that women have as opposed to men have, whether emotional, whether physical, whether it's success or whether things along those lines? Is there like a sex type of difference between the sexes that you've like kind of like noticed a pattern within?
Hmm. That's a great question. For for the women, the primary demographic of women that I work with are high achieving women. So what I say is women that have a more difficult time sitting down than getting up. Right? There's a lot of people that have a difficult time being motivated, being excited to go for the day, being able to be driven. But the most women I work with, they're not. It's the opposite. So they go, 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 make things happen all the time. So they tend to favor more of this masculine energy to them. And so for them, one of the most powerful things is being able to step more into a place of being able to be in their feminine energy and be able to attract from that place rather than the masculine push, 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 make things happen, force. And so what I see with most of these women is that they're having a difficult time being able to attract strong masculine men because of their over dominance in the masculine space. And as far as the men that I've worked with, it's kind of interesting. They tend to be a little more passive and embodying a little more feminine and have a difficult time being able to fully have a woman that is more in her feminine. So attracting more of a women that are in that masculine space. So the men that I work with tend to attract the women that I work with, and I'm able to help them both work through that process of what's causing the more feminine man to attract a more dominant masculine female, which they really don't want. And same thing vice versa with the women and being able to attract more of a strong, powerful masculine man, not a more submissive, uh, you know, beta male in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like opposites, but both have deeper emotional things they need to work through to be able to embody more of their natural essence. For the men, being able to step into their true masculinity, working through some emotional blockages is important to do. For the women to be able to step into their true femininity, it's important to be able to work through some of those emotional blockages that they have associated with their femininity. So different cores or different outer layers, but the cores, as far as different emotional issues they need to process to work through, are the same.
Very interesting. Um, wow. So it's almost like it's someone who's like they've like lived life almost like too much in a certain way, and they're just trying to come back to a bit more of who they are, what themselves are, and they're trying to get back kind of maybe more into themselves, their holistic selves. Have you seen like a general pattern of like obstacles that people in general are dealing with? Is it relationship? Is it growth? Is it personal being? Is it being okay within yourself? Is it sitting down, like you mentioned? Is there like a specific thing that you've seen in pattern, both men or both female or male, that like kind of you've seen that like like okay, this is what the main thing that's kind of needs to be unlocked within themselves? Is there like a specific like pattern that you've seen with these you know, high influence go-getters type of people?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the primary things that I see with these people is because a lot of them are at the forefronts of going and making things happen. So what I mean by that, they're the black sheep in their family that's gone above their family's programming and gone and done something bigger, right? Or they're very influential and they're leading the way for a large group of people. So when you're in that space, there's not a lot of people that you can relate to, right? When you're sitting at a really high end position where you're, I don't want to say above a lot of other people, but like very emotionally and mentally advanced, we'll just say in that way, it's difficult to be able to have people that you can relate to and difficult to be able to know if you're on the right track. So it can at times feel lonely. They say people at the top, it can feel lonely. And so because they don't have someone that they can really relate to and know if they're on the right track. And so for me, being able to constantly get them to a space where I'm right, I know I'm in the correct space and not doubting themselves, probably is the biggest one. Because like I said, when you're in that space where you're the leader and there's not a lot of people that are in that same realm, it's difficult to be able to know if you're always doing the right thing or not. So being able to go into that self-doubt that shows up when you are in a leadership position and to be able to say, okay, anchor in, you are doing the best thing possible for yourself and the people around you, and continually anchoring into that is probably one of the biggest things for the more influential demographic.
And would you say self-doubt is more present in people who are higher achieving or lesser than your median first percentile, second percentile human beings?
There's a surface level answer to that, and there's a deeper answer to that. My surface level answer to that would be no. I believe everybody experiences some level of self-doubt, whether you're achieving at a really high level or you're not. And getting to that next level requires you to work through some of that self-doubt. But my deeper answer to that is there actually might be a little more self-doubt with people that achieve at really high levels. And here's the caveat to that is their ability to get to these really high levels can actually come from their ability to question themselves and to point the finger at themselves rather than point the finger at the world. Right? Self-accountability is one of the primary things in being able to get to where you want to be. And a lot of people that aren't high achievers and high performers and really push themselves to be the best they can be, a lot of the times they're actually not blaming themselves, they're actually blaming the world. They're saying, okay, well, this is the reason why I'm not there. This is why I'm not there. This person's the reason, right? So
Right.
in a sense of deeper rooted self-doubt, I would say high achievers actually might have a little more in this because they already are very, very conscious of themselves and what they're doing. So because they're naturally a little more analytical of themselves, they can be a little more hard on themselves, which the caveat to that is the reason why they're so successful in the first place. Does
Right.
that make sense?
That makes sense. I mean, my intuition is like you're either a psychopath, which means you don't have that self-doubt at all, which I would say that self-consciousness, that sense of shame or whatever you would call it, that would be absent in a psychopath. But then, at least the people I look up to who are high achievers and not just high, like that seem to live meaningful, purposeful, like well accomplished, highly responsible lives, they seem to be bothered more than anybody. Like there's a certain sense of, like a self-consciousness that is extremely powerful. And I was wondering if you see that.
Well,
And you said you did.
I'll actually want to play on that because you said it's interesting because the caveat to what you said in regard to not feeling some of that shame, not feeling some of that self-doubt is being a psychopath. Well, there's two ends of that spectrum, right? On one end might be the psychopath, but the other one is divine grace, right? And that's actually
what do you mean by divine grace? Enlighten me.
Yeah, divine grace, to me, grace is not having a contingency on your ability to feel okay and safe within yourself. And one might call that a psychopath on one end, but I would say on the other end is I'm okay and I got me separate from anything that's going on. I don't need to forgive anybody else. I don't need to forgive myself because everything is just a continuation of where I'm at, and where I'm at is okay. And so it's being able to tap into that deeper level of there's not a right, there's not a wrong, there's not a good, there's not a bad, but there's just actions and there's things that I can improve on. And so I actually can improve and move forward and get better at things without using guilt and shame and self-punishment as ways of propelling myself. And that's really the next level for people that are high achievers, is being able to tap into this level of divine grace where I don't have to use being the underdog to motivate myself. I don't have to use self-hatred to motivate myself. I don't have to use chaos, creating chaos in my external environment to motivate myself. I can actually be aligned with myself and my heart, and I can move forward in that way without using these pressures and pain and guilt to push myself forward. And
Right.
so that's really the goal to me, is getting to a place of being able to embody that divine grace, which isn't psychopath. There is psychopath for a complete absence of any kind of emotion, right? But like I said, the other end, this is the place that a lot of high achievers have to get to for them to be able to continue to achieve at a high level and feel good about themselves in the process. Because that's one of the biggest things the high achievers miss out on, is it's not the success, it's the ability to feel good about their success in the process of attaining
Right.
it.
Yeah, Jordan reminds me of a line Jordan Peterson said somewhere like, as you go up in success, the people you like, you go up the ladders of the hierarchy of success, the people you compare yourself to are not who you were yesterday. You're like, they're your roommate in college at MIT. They're like Elon Musk and his roommate. Like, that's who you're comparing yourself to. Like, it tends to be that the people you surround yourself with are also high achievers, and also, like, meaning, so you don't really get to see your growth because the people that you're surrounded by are that you're measuring yourself against tend to come up with you, or the ones that don't come up with you tend to disappear, so you don't get to compare yourself to them. So there's a certain, like, you're never really satisfied. I mean, it's something I struggle with, or I'm blessed with, however you want to look at it. Like, there's a certain, like, it's never it. Like, I'm not there. Like, and there's never this feeling of like satiation or satisfaction, and almost like I'm working on being more comfortable without the feeling of satisfaction, like embracing the fact that I'm on a path, or that I'm on a journey. I'm not at a destination. And like, when it becomes like the car or the house or the rent, or the viewership, like a certain amount of metric as that which like gives me pleasure, then I'm going to be missing. Like, my metric will be insufficient. I'll always be insufficient. Like, Mayor, you would like to make money, and okay, right now it's $1 million, and then it's $10 million, and until you like it, you'll always be leveling up. But so you won't get pleasure from achieving anything. But there's a certain um, I don't know, like, desire to like receive pleasure from the grind, the pleasure from the process, the pleasure from the impact. And I mean, I can tell myself that out loud, but it's a lot more difficult actually feeling that way and thinking that way.
What do you believe is so difficult about it?
If there's anything that seems like true to me and like real to me, is that, like, the more I know, the more I understand, the more I move, like, the more I know I don't know. Like, there's that, like, this, and my capability expands, my responsibilities expand. Um, like, this was talking with Mayor. There was a certain, like, is there a fear? Is the fear of failure bigger, or the fear of success bigger? And I always had the metric of it being like a fear of failure. Like, there's this, I don't want to fail. But Mayor framed it in a way that seemed like he was telling a story about his brother, um, and they were playing basketball and shooting hoops, and Mayor's like, "We're not leaving until you make 5 baskets in a row." And okay, got 1 basket, 2 baskets. Okay, started over. 1 basket, 2 basket, and they were, how, I don't know how you said there that you were there for like 2 hours trying to make it. Finally, he has 4 baskets in a row, and he's like, "I'm not gonna make it." Like, and so I'm like, okay, it's a fear of failure. He doesn't want to disappoint himself. But Mayor said the fear of success, because as soon as you make the basket and you make 5, now you have to level up. Like, you have to, now it's 10 in a row. Like, the more, like, Jordan Peterson, sorry for quoting him all the time, but a huge influence on me. Like, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone else's today. And if today is tomorrow's yesterday, and I do really well today, and I'm on top of my game, and I'm pushing myself, and I've showed myself what to do, tomorrow I have to do a little bit better, and it's exponential. And there's a certain, like, I don't want to be squashed. I think I went a little off topic, but that's where my mind went.
That's definitely one way of being that is really powerful. Certainly. I take a little bit of a different approach in that for me, advancement isn't always linear. There's different areas and aspects of life that need more attention at different times. And I understand that when I pour a lot of time and energy into one aspect of life, another aspect of life then wants to be able to come up and rise to that same occasion. So if I get to like a 10 in my business, now I have a desire to want to rise my intimate relationship side of things to that 10. But if I continue to always try to strive to make that 10 to 20 to 40 to 80 in this one area, because that's how it is, then it can take away from my ability to be able to bring the other areas up. So that's why for me, I take more of an approach of being able to tap into deeper sense of inspiration that actually isn't like I don't really think about yesterday at all. Uh, to be honest, I more tap into daily inspiration of what I like to do and where I'm at. And now that's come through a lot of time and energy spent knowing how to create discipline and routine for myself. So being in more of a place of flow, I would say is a learned attribute. But when I'm feeling really good in one area, like my business is crushing it, my drive is to be more in a place of tapping more into my intimate side of relationships. So I've not necessarily put my business on the back burner. I just trust that there's things that are working on the back end that don't take my immediate attention. And that there's trust there that things are going to continue to grow when I'm pouring energy now into this place that's more inspiring to pour energy to, which is my intimate relationships. And so I'm really tuned into that changing and where that inspiration's at in different seasons of life. And as one goes up, I spend time in another that goes up, and then they'll all synchronistically like rise together. But I'm not thinking about if I did good enough on one yesterday. It's just more so tapping into my daily inspiration. What I see a lot of times is when we get really good at something, we can over identify with it. And so instead of then shifting the energy into a different area or realm of life, we'll continue to double down in this one. And eventually, when you double down in this one, it crashes and burns because what you didn't listen to was the shift in the energy, which is then focusing attention to the other areas that you never listened to. So it's kind of like someone that becomes very physically dominant, right? They learn how to lift weights, they learn how to be very healthy in their physical body with how they eat, but they never learn to nurture the mental side where they're able to become scholarly in something and really learn how to access their more mental smartness part of themselves, or they never end up learning how to get deeper in touch with their emotional side and tap into more of their feelings. And so I think across the board, it's very easy for us as humans to double down into one area of life and really go all in on it and not ever shift because it can feel a little uncomfortable to different areas of life. And being able to tap into the energy of, okay, now I want to pour into this. It's scary, but I want to pour into this now because it's going to make me a more dynamic human being and add more value to my life. That's where a lot of people get tripped up on. And learning to be able to tap into that voice that says, hey, we're okay here. Let's do this. Let's do this is one of the most difficult parts.
Would so maybe to link what I said to what you're saying, maybe the anxiety or the stress or whatever the sense of lack or self consciousness is not necessarily coming from um, other people or from like this ideal version of myself. It's more like because let's say I got like I'm doing really well in school and like my grades are up, and but then but then there's this anxiety or dissatisfaction. Like even though I feel like I'm on the right path, like I'm studying psychology and philosophy, that's what I would like to be doing, but something doesn't feel right, and like I have the tendency to, oh, maybe it means philosophy and psychology is not the right path, as opposed to, oh, like maybe you're just not paying attention to the other parts of your basket that really need to be filled or satisfied, like my physical health or like relationship health, something like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of the times when we don't listen to that, it will show up in the way that, like you just said. They'll show up in the way of, oh, well, maybe this is wrong, or maybe this thing is the problem. But actually, when eventually, if you don't listen long enough, that thing that we're using to avoid going to the other areas, our brains will eventually demonize, which is really, really fascinating, to try to get us to stop and go to a different area or create chaos in that realm. That's what I see a lot with the clients that I have. They'll create chaos in their businesses because they're so uncomfortable going to these other areas of life and addressing those other areas. So they'll double down in their business. But eventually, it'll crash and burn, and our brains will blame that thing instead of just being able to see it as, okay, maybe there's something else I need to be putting more attention and effort into.
That's such an
Exactly.
interesting thought that like it's like, let's say you have, again, what we're talking about, whether it's school, whether it's success, whatever your business, whatever it might be, pick any topic you wish. Let's say you have, quote unquote, an issue or a problem or an obstacle in that field. We are so trained, at least I am personally, I think many of us are, like it's so to like, okay, what's wrong with this obstacle? Maybe it's too, maybe this what's it called? Maybe this jump is too high, you know, maybe this barricade is too high, maybe the barricade's too small, maybe it's like the colors are off, whatever it is. Like so focused on like, okay, well, what's wrong? Why am I not liking it? What's wrong with this very thing that I'm having an issue with? And it's kind of like what something we're saying is that like, forget the issue you have here, like focus on something else, focus on something on the right or on the left that you can maybe, you know, change around your circles and not the thing itself. And honestly, that's a great point. Like I love that. Like it can be something in your relationship, something with your wife or your girlfriend, or something with your boss or one of your employees, or something in your health, or something you're working out. Like, and then itself, like it kind of sounds like we're getting to like a point where like it's like everything's connected. Like don't negate any side of who you are and what you're doing in your daily life. It's all connected in some way. There's interconnectivity spanning across everything that you are doing, right? And yeah, I just like everything that we're saying seems like these things are connected, and someone like helping understand people. Maybe can you do this in your line of work, like help people understand like, hey, you're not just this influencer, you're not just impacting these people, you have another side to yourself as well. You have your emotional side. Sometimes you have to just sit, you know. Sometimes I think many times for many of us, it's like just do nothing. Like we're always taught like do something after school programs, after school programs. What communities are you a part of? What are you doing on the side? How many of this training do you do? Do you work out? Do you do this? Do you go out? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have this? Like so many things you could be doing. Like we never focus on like what movie you watching, what TV show. We never focus on like how about just being? Forget everything else. How about the fact that you exist now in this moment and anything else that's around it? Like we don't give enough value to like being okay doing nothing. Like nothing is a scary word in our society. Like especially Western society, doing nothing is like, wow, this is so lame to do nothing. Who are you hanging out with? Where are you going? What have you achieved? What have you been doing? So we're like, let's do. And like, we always forget like, how about just being? But yeah, I mean, the main point I'm trying to put out is like the
Well, and I want
interconnectivity.
to touch on that too, though. Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to touch that what you just said about the being part. It's really fascinating because this is a big thing that I dive into with a lot of my clients, is that a lot of the times there's not enough incentive to get someone to tell them, hey, you just got to be more. Like stop being so busy, allow yourself just to relax. When their brain's like, okay, well, what the fuck does that do for me? Like, okay, I'm being okay, great. What does that do for me? But actually, it goes much deeper than that. And I would say that out of all the things that we do, probably between 5 to 10% of those things actually contribute to the moving forward and our bottom line of success in our life. So when you're moving all the time, constantly doing a ton of things, 85 to 90% of the things you're doing are just fluff. They're just fluff. They're you just doing things for the sake of you doing them. And so the beautiful part about stepping into some of that nothing that you talked about is that you can start to get in alignment with the things that are actually contributing to your bottom line of success in your business, of success in your relationships, right? It's kind of like with guys, they might be like, oh, well, I do all these things for my girl. I bring her flowers. I always tell her I love her. I tell her good morning. I'm always there for her whenever she needs me. And you're doing all these things. But in reality, the truth is what she actually needs is just to know that you're there. She doesn't need you to overstrain yourself. She doesn't need you to always forego what you want to do for her. She actually doesn't want you to do that at all. But when we're caught in this trap of thinking that we have to do, the more we do, the better the situation is going to be, it ends up leading to chaos. And so stepping into the nothingness allows us to sit and be with ourselves, and actually in that space reveals space to see what's actually contributing to the bottom line. Hold on. When I wake up and I'm prospecting for 3 hours to all these different countries, well, actually, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the only people I'm actually getting clients in is the US. So why am I reaching out to Canada and Germany? That doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to reach out to the US, of course, right? So that nothingness creates space to understand what the 5 to 10 to 15% of the stuff is that are actually contributing to your bottom line, so you can remove the rest of the stuff.
Have you in your life, Keyen, gone through a progression of do, extreme your emotional or physical self to extreme measures, and like you kind of like coach, helping people coach and things that you've kind of worked on yourself?
Absolutely, man. And my first life, the first life that I lived, I say I've lived 3 lives, maybe
Yeah,
coming up on 4
lives?
during this. Yeah. During this lifetime. Yeah. So my first life, when I was a professional athlete, getting to that point of being a professional football player, you wouldn't guess now. I look like a cross country runner, but I played linebacker. I played linebacker professionally for a very short period of time. But during that time, that process of me becoming a professional, I got so big. I put on so much muscle. I got up to 245 pounds. And so, but in reality, my best weight that I played at was right around 230 pounds. I was really fast. I was agile. My conditioning was incredible. But something inside of me was like, no, I got to do more. I got to get bigger. I got to keep lifting more. I got to keep eating more. And for me, that was easy because I knew how to do that. But actually, the thing that I was lacking the most was this idea that, hey, I'm the best. I'm the best. And I don't have to do all those things because I'm already a freak athlete. Right. And this is the thing with between a lot of like black athletes and white athletes is you can see it as these black athletes like, yo, bro, like I'm the best. I got it. I got the juice. I ain't got to do all that. Like, yeah, I work hard, but like, I don't have to do what you're doing. And a lot of times the white guys are the really hard workers and push really hard and go above and beyond because they're lacking some of that confidence. And now we can exchange some of that, right, to each other. And now keep in mind, I'm not saying that's like the same across the board for all black and white athletes, but that tends to be the stereotype.
Right.
And so
It's
for
like
me,
it's like a Shaq and Kobe Bryant dynamic.
Right, exactly. And so for me, I should have stopped putting so much effort in and should have just focused on more of, yo, I'm the man. Like I crush it. Like I'm a 2-year captain of Division I college football team. Like I am the man, like it clearly. And that would have helped me with probably not getting injured in the way that I got injured, which ended my career. So I can't say for sure, but for me, I was like, push, make things happen, make things happen. But I'd already, and this is what I'm talking about with the categories, I'd already maxed that category out. I was big enough. I was strong enough. I should have actually started just to focus on not doing as much and just owning that, hey, yo, I'm the man. So that was what I would say led to my demise with getting injured in football. Carrying that much weight definitely was not great for my body. So that's my example.
So with like success or personal perfection seemingly being at the top of the hierarchy, what are those categories that you've broken things down into? Whether it's physical, mental, like what are the categories that you've laid out?
I'm not quite sure entirely what you're asking.
Meaning you said like there's that category, there's that part of like I mastered the muscle. I mastered my communication skills. Like meaning there's facets to being a successful human being that I'd say maybe I'm making an assumption that you don't make, but like a rule book, your 7 habits or your the elements of your life that you need to pay attention to. Like for me, I know if I don't have intellectual stimulation, social stimulation, and physical stimulation throughout the day, I have a very low chance of having a day that feels good. Versus like almost magically, if I just hit the gym and I or go on a run or go on a bike ride, sit down at the coffee shop and talk to a random person, and it happens to be an intellectual or intellectually and socially stimulating conversation, all of a sudden, like if I can work that into my day, all's good. Like I talk to Mayor once a week, like it's like, and then like all of a sudden we fell off, like it was went like a month without talking to each other, and for some reason, like wow, I'm more depressed. But like I realized like that's a key component that I was not paying attention to. So I was wondering if maybe you're more systematized than I am, like, and because you're a coach, you're a professional. I'm just a bumbling idiot. But do you have categories that you need to pay attention to be a successful human being?
Well, definitely. This is a fantastic question, and what comes up is I want to naturally categorize people into one or two buckets, and learning how to be able to play in the other person's space to me is what creates incredible balance and internal peace, more internal peace. And that there's the category of people that I would say are naturally much more apt to always put other people first. So their number one thing is helping others, being there for others, being selfless, always constantly wondering if the people around them are okay, and putting less attention and effort into making sure that they're self-sufficient and they're independent. Okay. And then there's the other category of people that I would say are naturally much more independent, that are much more in this place of, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to make things happen the way I want to make things happen. I'm not really concerned about how that's affecting many of the people around me because I got a destination that I want to go to, and that's exactly where I'm going. And so for the people that are over here in this category of putting other people first, the people pleasers, really making sure that people are catered to and taken care of, is learning how to get alone, learning how to be okay with receiving when the other person they're perceiving isn't getting as much as they are, and learning how to be able to be self-sufficient where you're not always having to get your okayness from helping other people, but actually feel good because they feel good, not giving themselves permission to feel good because other people around them are feeling good, right? And that a lot of times that's a radical commitment to saying, okay, I can't cater to any of you anymore. I have to cater to myself and my own desires and what I want. I'm going to commit to that. And that's going to create more of a balance because intimacy, a lot of the times, isn't an issue for these people, right? That's something they got down. But internal peace and confronting their aloneness is not. And self achievement is not. So learning how to play in both spaces is really important. For these people over here, learning how to be able to create intimacy where realizing, okay, maybe some of the things you're doing are actually hurting other people, which is actually hurting you. Because the people that you really love your wife, but you're neglecting her and constantly always submersing yourself in your business and your own personal goals separate from her, right? You love your kids, but you're not putting any attention or effort into your kids because you're always just going towards what you want. Maybe you need to learn how to be able to show love and affection and intimacy for the people in your life. So these people that are always the more independent ones, learning how to be able to be more interconnected and be more intimate with the people close to them. So, like I said, most people normally come from one category or another, and learning how to play in the other person's space, I would say it leads to more overall completeness and peace. But in the process, probably won't. You'll confront a lot of deep shit that's not going to feel good in the process of being able to embody the others.
How do you go about embodying the other space? Meaning, yeah, how do you go about it? Say I'm on the agreeable people pleaser side. How do I go
Yeah.
about? How do
So
I go about it? Yeah.
it's interesting. I've actually I've embodied both. I'd say I come from the natural people pleasing side and learned to be much more me. And so what I did, I actually did this as a practice because I used to do this thing where I'd say hi to everybody. I'd be on a walk and I'd say, hi, how are you doing? How are you doing? And I just had this inclination to just say, you know what? No, I can't keep expending my energy everywhere. I'm actually just going to put my head down and I'm just going to walk to where I want to walk to and not say hi to anybody. I'm not going to look at anybody. And this is when my business was like in infancy and I was hitting some walls and I'm like, fuck this. Like I just need to put my energy into myself. And I just had this inclination to do it. I did it and it was so hard for me. It was like I was like a crackhead, man. Like saying hi to people and talking to people and like making other people's day was like
but I needed it. And so when I wasn't doing it, I felt this like lack. And I felt this emptiness in me. It was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. Because I got so much of my okayness from the approval I was getting from other people. And if you've run a business, you have to you know that you can't have success in a business if you're relying on the approval of other people to be able to get you there. You can't.
Right.
You can't. And so for me, it was so difficult because I literally went to this place of I can't care about what anybody else is doing around me. My family, you can do your thing. My friends, you can even do your thing. I'm not going to check up on my friends all the time like I used to. I practice that too, right? And I said, what's in front of me and what do I need to do? What do I need to focus on for me right now, separate from what everybody else is doing? And it was hard. It was really difficult. Like I said, I felt withdrawals from that process. I felt all my loneliness. Right? I felt all that. And that's been the journey for me, is being able to sink into my loneliness so I can make decisions that are best for me, separate from other people, which I'm finding now that are actually the best things for other people, which is a whole other conversation.
Awesome. Do you have a guru, a confidant for yourself?
Absolutely. I have a few. So there's one who is not my, like, obviously he's dead. He's passed away. But I love Alan Watts. I've listened to almost everything on that guy. Incredible, genius, wizard. He's one of them. But I also have one that I do have in person. And so he's a mentor and he does the work that I do for me as well, which is kind of cool. I get a 2-in-1. So he's been doing what I do for like 20 plus years. So he helps me work through and process my deeper rooted hurts and beliefs that I have, but also is a mentor in the way of showing me how to continually be more successful in this space.
Awesome. And yeah, Alan Watts, I mean, most of my exposure to Alan Watts like came from Akira the Dawn. I don't know if you're familiar. He does like lo-fi like house remixes of Alan Watts, Jocko Willink, Jordan Peters. Like he just takes like clips of theirs. I mean, Alan Watts, everybody puts his stuff to music. Like you can't listen to Alan Watts without like a backtrack and beautiful sunsets and stuff going on. An Alan Watts quote that has stuck with me was, when it comes to trusting yourself, it says, if you can't trust yourself, then how can you trust yourself about not trusting yourself? Meaning it's a logical fallacy. It's like, oh, I can't trust myself. I can never trust myself. Like, okay, then you can't trust that voice that tells you don't trust yourself. So you're stuck nowhere. So you have to start. It was of all his quotes, that one runs through my head on a daily basis.
He does an incredible job of always bringing you into getting you into this thought loop that always brings you back to nothing.
Yeah. And another one was with if everything in the world was exactly how you would want it, like you could press a button, you can have everything you would like at any moment. Eventually, you would end up hitting the button that says "surprise me," and basically pointing out how the world, with all its chaos and all its idiosyncrasies and suffering, and is perfect. It is how you would end up wanting it. Like you would destroy it and bring it to this place if everything was perfect.
Absolutely. And you know, another big thing that I got from Alan Watts, which this is one of my main practices now, is saying I don't care about changing the world. I have zero care and desire to change the world at all. And it's interesting because he talks about when you fix one thing, that leaves space for another to emerge to have to fix as well. So when you fix one problem, then you have to handle and deal with another. And so it just ends up being this massive loop of fixing problems that come from fixing problems. And so being able to let go of responsibility for the world and being able to tap into your own deeper sense of inspiration, and as a byproduct, maybe creating impact and influence on the world, that's a much better way to go about it, because there's this huge like thing with the entrepreneur community and self-help, and like, I want to change the world. But I want to change the way this quote said. Some people say, well, if you want to change the world, you change yourself. But I say, like, can I swear on this or no?
You can say and whatever you'd like to say,
Okay.
all you'd like.
Yeah, I say fuck the world. Okay, I'm tapping into my own inspiration, my day-to-day inspiration of what I want to do, and what you'll find through me doing that by looking at my track record and the people that come across me is that they substantially change. And the more I tap into my own inspiration and I forget about the world, the greater impact I make on the world.
Yeah, it's this crazy. I don't know if catch-22 is the right way of putting it, but when you're motivated for something's own sake, the byproduct is much greater than if you. It just reminds me of a philosophy paper I had to write about in this past week. It was called Moral Saints by Susan Wolf, and she was criticizing the concept of putting like the ideal human being as a moral saint, because by pursuing moral sainthood, it first off, it's extremely demanding, and it diminishes your ability to pursue any interests or any value or any hobbies or any and you would end up being a very unattractive person by pursuing that. And it's almost like if you just and she offers as the flip side, pursue personal perfection, and the consequences of somebody who's pursuing personal perfection will be net also, like it happens to be, will also be better for the world. Meaning, what I find funny is there's always this need to pitch how in the end of the day it will be better for the world, as opposed to being like, screw the world, like just only like I don't, even if it has zero benefit for the world. So my feeling is as human beings we are social, and no matter how much we turn off the outside world, we at least need to know somewhere that it's providing some value to somebody other than myself. Otherwise, like, so I'm wondering how you draw that line. Am I like being a narcissist and just pursuing hedonism and pleasure and whatever makes me feel good, and providing value? Like, I mean, because you use the term providing value, like to who? Like, and I do believe providing value is the ultimate aim, but by pursuing it, we end up not providing value.
Mm-hmm. I think we can merge the two. I think I can be living a life pursuing my own deepest sense of desire and be providing optimal value. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think they can be and should be one and the same.
So are you positing that the human being's natural desire is ultimately good or valuable? Like my internal desire, if I just tap into it, is that which is valuable and good, as opposed to something that I need to change? Like the idea that I'm not listening to myself. That's why you're doing all these evil things. Like there is no evil in the world. There's just ignorance. Or, and if you were just to become unignorant about who you are, then you would be maximally valuable. Is that what?
I rephrase the question. What I
please.
think you're asking.
Yeah, go for it.
Is it meaning this? Is it that meaning like we have a meaning we already have this good in us? We just have to avoid the obstacles to get to it, and by avoiding distractions and just getting into it is going to unleash it? Or do we have to bring it from outside of us into ourselves? Is that what you're asking, Mendy? I mean, is it a passive or is it an active? I mean, is it an active seeking for that thing that I'm trying to get? Or is it more passive, ignore all those things you're trying to get and just let it come sit into you, and it'll manifest itself from within that? Meaning, it's the difference between being passive or being active about it.
That's the good question. I don't know if I would change being passive and active. I'm skeptical as to if I were to just pursue that which I find pleasurable and good, that it would actually provide value. Like maybe I'm more twisted than most, but to me, it's like I'm not catching the jump.
Have you ever lived your life in a pleasure pursuing state, or have you primarily lived your life in a state of considering and making sure that other people are taken care of and have received value from you?
So I would say until about 20 years old, I pursued a pleasure-seeking life, and I still attempt to, but it's difficult having responsibilities that are like real, like that seem like more tangible than anything else, like being a dad and being a husband, like that. Those are anchors or inhibitions. I mean, I believe ultimately ones that would allow for further growth and further development, but it can definitely feel constricting at times. And like, I believe that in order to be the best husband and to be the best dad, I need to figure out how to be what I need to satisfy what I feel makes me inadequate, or I need to be fulfilled. I need to have meaning, and like that means I need to take care of myself first, and because it's like a trickle down economics. If I am optimal, then it'll trickle down. But if I'm not optimal, inevitably it'll just crack, burst, and pop. So I think I totally agree with you. I just would like to hear how you articulate it.
Each person has a divine path separate from what they believe the path is or should be. And for me, the goal is tapping into that self inspiration that I don't exactly know what it is entirely, but a lot of it has to do with letting go of what we think that it should be or that it needs to be. And when we can let go of what we think that it should or needs to be, it allows us to be okay with what is and create space for improvement instead of improving from a place of needing to have to improve. So, this is a really, really deep question that is entirely circumstantial to the person. So, I can't give you need to seek and pursue pleasure or you need to put your own self interest aside and start thinking about other people. If there's a problem with your life and you're not happy with it, if you're open to receiving some other information to shift and change it, it will emerge. But pressure and force, I don't believe are the best ways to do that.
I'm with you. What you just said, maybe as opposed to thinking of what should be and needs to be, like take a pause and think about what could be. And I feel like there's something about that phrasing of it, like what could be, and it allows it to be internal, like vision, as opposed to one that's a judgmental vision or and like have some type of external responsibility towards like what could be. And that's a question I've been trying to ask myself, like what could life look like? What would you like it to look like? What would you like tomorrow to look like? As opposed to what should it? What does it have to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's interesting, because you mentioned at the beginning too, you mentioned something about being able to be okay now and also be able to push and strive for the future. So our pushing towards an idealistic idea of ourselves takes away from our ability to be happy now. But I think the beautiful combination, similar to my ability to pursue personal desire and also make that be the best interest of other people, I believe it's 100% possible because I live it to be good and happy and okay now with where I am and live in excitement for what's to come. Like that's entirely possible. Like I can be present here and now, be excited and be stoked for what's to come. And I think that comes down to an ability to recognize each day. I see each day that comes as extra. Like every day is a cherry on top to me. Every day is a cherry on top. Like I'm like, holy shit, I've already lived so much life. I've done a lot. Like, whoa, I get to do another day. I get to do another day. And it might be kind of cliche, but that's how I see it. Like I'm not think I'm trying to see it that way, but that's how I see it. And I don't have this idea that, well, I haven't lived out my purpose yet. I haven't helped enough people. I haven't done the things that I want to do. I really don't care. I don't care. Like I could die tomorrow. I could sit here and say to you, I'll die tomorrow. I'll die tomorrow. And there's nothing that brings up in my body. And getting to a point where we're not afraid to die tomorrow and we let go of this idea of fulfilling our purpose or our destiny or any of that stuff, you're going to have a hard time being able to find a little more peace now.
We 3 times a day, in the morning, noon, and at night. In our morning prayers, one of the things that goes along, I'll say it in Hebrew, it's called Ezehu Ha'ohev Yomim, Ezehu Tzadik Ohev Yomim Yoros Tov, which literally translates into who is a man who is like the elixir of life is the way it's translated. Like who's the one who's like holding on to life? Who's the one who's got like the golden nugget of life, who's living in and being there, and who's the one who's living the life? And the sentence continues and says, it's he who is looking forwards for good. Which to me, when I first thought of it, I was like, what does that even mean? Like it wasn't like it was a present state of looking for the future and being excited about it. Like I think you mentioned in the beginning of what you were just saying, like excited for the future. Like you being your best now is you being excited for what might come. At the same time, being in that moment. But for me, when I first understood that, I was like, wow, like and I look back in my own life and I was like 100%. Like when I feel most enjoyed in life, when I'm most excited, is when I'm excited for something that's going to be happening in the future, whether it's a month out, 2 months out, with our trip to Montana. Like that was like I love, like I'm not typical planner for months in advance. I kind of like go with the flow. But I realized like after that trip that like I had 3 months to be excited for that. And like every single day that got closer and closer was an exciting day because I got closer to that thing that was happening. So in my personal life, I'm trying to set more of those like things for the future to be excited for, because I realized that like the excitement for me, like my present state now, is better when there's something to be excited for in the future wise.
I agree. Absolutely.
I had another question for you, Keyen. You did mention that in the beginning that a topic can get lonely.
Your service, Mayor, at least for me, is skipping.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, there you go. So you said at the top you can get lonely.
Right. We're talking about like at the top, like one of these seems like many people that many of your clients, the thing that they have a hang up in is that they feel lonely, like they can't compare themselves to people. They're not sure, where they're at. Do you feel like that's a general thing over the 10 years, or it's kind of new to our civilization, new to humanity, that we feel more lonely than we have before?
No, I don't think it's new. I think it's been around for a long time, but it just happens to be that now more than ever, the capacity to feel lonely might be a little higher, right? Especially when it comes to actually having a lot of success. Kids that are 22, 23 years old are retiring, right? And so they're not having to work towards and pursue something. And what's left is your feelings. And using money, using success to block out and feel certain feelings can be a very effective thing. This is why a lot of our parents never went through the process of working through their emotional shit, because there wasn't space for them to really have to. They were surviving. They were trying to pay the bills. They were working all the time to try to make a family dynamic work, right? And so now we're living in a time where that's not really necessary. And success is happening much sooner. And independence is happening much sooner. And so we're forced to confront that which is left over, because we're not blocking it anymore, because we're being fulfilled in the financial department and the success department. And so it's becoming more apparent, right? More freedom doesn't mean less problems. It means that the problems move from one thing to another. Like I was referring to earlier, talking about the Alan Watts of when you solve one problem, that leaves space for another. Well, we've been able to solve in the United States a place of creating more freedom and financial success and business success much younger. But that creates more space for our deeper emotional familiar baggage to emerge, because we just simply have more space for it to come up. So I think there's more time and space for it to emerge. Not that it's more for the sake of being more now, but just simply because we have much more capacity for that to bubble to the surface because of the amount of space and time that we have now.
Would you say that allows us to get to, like, it seems like we have to deal with the issues that like almost really matter, like the really good questions about life, like obviously how to make money, how to be successful, that gets everybody going. But like for me at least, like that question of like what would you do if money wasn't, if physical health and money weren't two things that you're pursuing relentlessly, like if you that was opened up and and you had all the time in the world, which we do. And I mean, I feel like obviously with the death of God and, as Nietzsche put it, in the absence of top-down meaning and us creating meaning structures and value structures as opposed to like receiving them, there's an immense amount of value. And obviously you see it in everybody being religious about whatever it is they're religious about, like whether it's masks or social justice or conservatism or liberalism. Like everybody becomes, or like everybody's grasping religiously at like for answers of these, I think, the real deep meaningful questions. And I was wondering, what do you think? What do you believe is the meaning of life? What do you believe you're here for? And then maybe you can take that out to what we're here for.
Whew. See, but what comes up and what I deeply feel might be two different things.
Yeah. Go with what comes up, and then we're on a podcast. Yeah. I'm not asking you to write your thesis.
Yeah, good. I would say I've let go of meaning. Like I've let go of having to have purpose. Like I think purpose actually confuses things for people. I think it can be great in the beginning phase of life with development to have something to look forward to, but eventually all roads lead to nothing. They do. Like faith is letting go. Like pure trust is letting go. And if I really believe in something greater than myself, to me, it's letting go of there needing to have to be. Like I let go of purpose. I don't need purpose to justify my existence. I don't need to know that I'm pursuing my purpose, know that I'm justifying my existence. I don't need to know there's something in the afterlife to justify my existence for being here now. And it might feel like there's some gloominess to that, but for me, it's actually liberating. And it actually takes off another layer of pressure that's there to be able just to live.
But why just live? Why, like, meaning just to be as comfortable as possible? That's the aim, like to be as unbothered and comfortable as possible.
And see, so you're trying to find an answer for something that doesn't have a direct. So it's not like so you just live as comfortable as possible, right?
Meaning,
you're trying like
right. I guess I have an assumption that you do find meaning in somewhere. Like almost like I don't believe you. Like where are you finding your fulfillment and meaning? You found it in being comfortable and not bothered. I'm projected. That's most likely what I projected.
Right, and so what happens is it just emerges. And a lot of people, like when we let go of these labels that we have to justify our existence, I'm Keyen the coach. My name is Keyen. I'm a former football player. I am Christian. I am this. I like when we let go of those labels that we have to justify our existence, really at the foundation of it, there's a sense of liberation that emerges, but it's going through the pain of separating from being identified with the labels. And it might be difficult for people to grasp or understand, but that's where liberation comes from. The more I go into separating from needing the labels, the more liberated I become in pursuing my deeper sense of heart desire. And my connection with my greater sense of heart desire emerges as I let go.
So it's like Mayer put it, it's letting go as opposed to do it. It's interesting. I mean, you market yourself as a success. I mean, success. I'm confident, but on LinkedIn, it was like a success is a word that to me is associated with the opposite of let it go. It means not letting go almost. But you're framing it in a way
Well,
that
here it
I
is.
like it.
You got to meet them where they're at. You got to give them what they want to be able to really.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You got exactly. You can't. Marketing is
And
key.
here's the thing too. Is I believe pursuing earthly success is a very powerful thing to do in our time on earth. And I want the people that I work with to have unlimited success. And I want them to get to a space where they have space to have thoughts emerge that they otherwise wouldn't because they were constantly pursuing. Because in that space of the nothing emerges greater levels of truth. Then I can facilitate that for them. Right? When they get to a place of, holy shit, I've created incredible success for myself in these different areas of life, and there's nothing else, like what it's not what I thought it would be. I say, okay, great. Let's talk about it.
Awesome.
Because a lot of the times to get to that place of letting go of the labels and nothing, it comes from actually pursuing greater levels of earthly success, which is
right.
a fascinating thing.
You know, I had another question in specific how people in your line of work do work. Is it primarily like you just said, let's talk about it, or is it let's do something about it? Are most of these people doing, or most of them talking, or most of them feeling? How do most of your clientele per se kind of work on their thing, or is it case specific, or is it a general? Because personally, for me, like talking, like with something I need to get through, it's talking. Like it's my talking happens first, and then my doing, like inevitably occurs after. Is it mainly a talking, or are you setting like specific goals to reach, or is it like being okay with it? What kind of like therapy, I would say, would you use with your clientele? Is there like a general therapy that you've developed that you kind of use and plug in, plug out to clientele?
Yeah. The doing is last. Doing is a byproduct. So we start with talking, and through the talking emerges emotion. So talking emerges feeling, and through deep submission and pressure down into the feeling emerges nothing, which inside of the nothing emerges action. Right? That's the beautiful part. Like almost like clockwork. I could take someone through an emotional roller coaster, bring them out into nothing, which emerges inspired action.
Driven by nothing, not caring, not thinking, not judging, not like what do you mean when you say nothing?
The no thing, the space, right? You done the Joe Dispenza's like meditations, like the space, right? Once there's been an incredible release of emotion, right? Purging of that emotion emerges, right? You start here, you go down into it, down into it. You feel and experience it, and you come back up and out of it. And on the other side of that purging experience emerges nothing. It's a space. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just here. I feel calm. I feel peaceful. Oh, they got some snot coming out of their nose, like some tears coming down their eyes a little bit still. Nothing. Say, okay, we'll just stay right here. Okay. And we marinate in the nothing. Okay. And through the nothing emerges space for inspired action or heart-led inspiration to emerge.
Between something and then emergence.
Say that again.
I say in between the nothing and the emergence, between those two, between the bridge that connects those two, is that bridge what you believe a inner thing that is within each person, or is that a manifestation that occurs from the work that's done from beforehand?
I believe it's accessible in each person, but unfortunately, because it can be it's a skill, it's an art to be able to tap into that. It's complex, but it's taught. Like geniuses like Joe Dispenza teach people how to be able to tap into it, right? And it's a learned skill that over time can become second nature. And I believe I've tapped into an incredible sense of inspired action inside of myself where I'm really, really just aligned with it. It's a skill. It's a learned skill.
And would you, if you coach somebody, or you help somebody get to this place of being able to get into that nothing, to feel the nothing, to sit with the nothing, and they stayed there, as opposed to it being brought into the world of action, would that be a success, or even more ideal than it needing to be come back into this world of action, this world of behavior? I mean, like, to me, I have in mind the monk who just literally just sits there and is zen, or the person who takes a tab of acid and then just takes another one, another one, another one, doesn't leave his bedroom, but is like, would that be a success?
For me and how I choose to live, I want to get the absolute most out of this human earthly experience. I'm not someone that's pursuing enlightenment for the sake of going and living in the forest and doing nothing. I think that's copping out of the human experience.
Okay.
So for me personally, the importance of getting to the nothing is to get in touch with the voice, separate from insecurity, separate from programming, separate from labels, separate from this idea of who we believe that we are. So that's the power of the voice, to be able to live this human experience at the highest level, be able to clear out all the labels, all the shit, all the guilt, all the shame, all of societal programming, and be able to tap into that voice of heart desire is the goal. Like, that's, to me, is the goal to living on earth.
All right, there we go. I forced it out of you that there is a goal, there is a meaning, there is a purpose. I like it. I don't want to keep you longer than you would like to be here. So, what are you thinking? How are you feeling on time?
I'm good. I'm good if you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
And I appreciate. And here's the thing: I appreciate you pulling it out of me too. That's powerful. Like, a lot of the people that I work with can tell people what I do better than I do. Because I'm just here with you.
Got it. I really like. I like that a lot. I mean, yeah, it's definitely something that, like, in this ideal world, right? The ideal world, I just sit and have conversations with people, and yeah, help change my perspective on the world, shape it, and maybe provide some value and help shape other people's perspective on the world while I'm on my journey. But, like, it doesn't. It seems like I have this inner nagging voice of like you're missing something, you're not dealing with something. And so recently I've discovered, like, I've been at doctors and they thought maybe I had Crohn's. No, you don't have Crohn's, you have some type of inflammatory bowel disease, like, meaning. And then I just thought, like, okay, my stomach hurts, like, whatever, and it was probably going on for years. And then now in, like, hindsight, knowing that there's something wrong right internally, it's like, how much is that screwed with my gut, meaning not just my physical gut, my actual gut, my instinct, and, like, how much can I be trusting myself? How much of the self-talk that I've had over the past 6 months or year has been, like, polluting as opposed to valuable. Yeah, so this is a very good conversation for me.
And, man, that's the power of having someone too, or a series of people that we can bounce off of, to be able to continually tap into that. I get off track. Absolutely. That's why I have people in my life to be able to bring me back to that place. A lot of the times it's permission, because it can be scary as fuck to follow heart desire, man. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what? Like this right here, like, this is it right here. It's like, whoo. And here's the thing: heart desire doesn't have to be big, extravagant, Superman saving the world shit. Like, dude, I had a heart desire a month ago when I was in Brazil to get a tattoo without having to think about it at all. Because I'm a natural thinker. I'm like, how's this, like, 50 steps down the road, future? Will I want this? Will I not want it? And everything decided, because I had 2 weeks left in Brazil. I was like, I just got to call my tattoo artist. I did it. I didn't know exactly what I was going to get. I said, hey, you have an opening? And she's like, yes, I do. This is the day and time. I said, okay. It was a week from then. I didn't know what I was going to get, even when I was in the Uber on the way to get the tattoo. I had an idea, and we drew up the whole thing in 15 minutes when I got there. Epic. I love it. And just got it. Right? Didn't have to think about the future of it. Didn't want to think about what it would be like, and just committed to that. Like that.
A lifelong
like things
commitment.
like that. And it's just like power. That's power. There's power in chosen ignorance. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big lesson right there. Power in chosen ignorance. Okay? Because guess what? Having what we really want and desire doesn't come from this linear plane where we say, if I do this, then this will happen. That can only take us so far. Because in the quantum realm, like there is no direct understanding of cause and effect. That's trying to play God, and I can't play God. Right? All I know is my heart inspiration, and if I try to like go a million other directions, try to figure the whole thing out, I'll get lost. So that chosen ignorance of tapping into that heart inspiration and saying, I know maybe this thing isn't this because of all my previous understandings and my own associations with it, which are skewed as fuck, right? Only based off my perception of my understanding, I'll get all out of whack. So there's actually genius. My idol, Forrest Gump, right?
Yep.
I could talk about that. That guy had an incredible life, right? Incredible life, genius, and he wasn't considering anything.
Life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Right? So a lot of the part of getting really intelligent and smart and extremely spiritual, a lot of it ends up being letting go of all of it.
Right.
That's it.
We worship our conceptions of reality as opposed to worshiping reality, like our projection. And you're a Christian, you said, or not that we have any labels? No. Okay. Whatever. Okay. So what?
I used to identify with it.
So in the Old Testament, in the Torah, there is the story of the golden calf, and right. So God says to Moses, "Your people are doing shenanigans down there," and Moses is like, "What do you expect from them?" Like, meaning, what do you mean? Of course they are. Like, they were just released from slavery. They're like, of course they're up to nonsense and doing debaucherous things. And then Moses comes down after like warding off God, comes down holding the tablets. You can imagine like what these tablets created and carved by God, however they look. And then he sees them dancing around the idol. And when he sees them dancing around it and celebrating it, that's when he he drops it, when he tosses it, when he gets on God's side. And the way I understand it is when he saw that they had their own projections, but when they were dancing around their projections, circling it and worshiping their own projection, that's that we can't work with that. And so it took a breaking and a shattering of the tablets and the rest of history of picking back up the pieces. But yeah, that's cool.
The celebration of like your projection, like you'll have projections, and that's fine, it's human, but don't start celebrating, your projections of what is happening. I mean, I'm thinking of a scene right now in The Big Short where like these two kids, they finally figure out they're going to make tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, because the stock market's going to crash, and they know it's going to crash, and they're dancing the fact that they can become millionaires. And the guy who their mentor, who ends up being Brad Pitt in the movie, tells him, he's like, stop what the fuck you're doing. Like, do anything, but don't fucking dance. That's exactly his line. Like, do whatever you want, but don't fucking dance. Like, millions of people are going to lose their jobs, their career, their lives, their life savings. You guys can become millionaires. You guys can become millionaires, but don't fucking dance, It's exactly, it's exactly that same exact thing. Like, okay, yeah, you might get it, but don't start like parading in your perceptions,
So, when did you grow up Catholic? In fact, I can go into the religious realm because that interests me a lot.
Woo! Cool.
Your audience most certainly will not hear this. Like, let's just put it this way: you can be comfortable.
No, I hope they do. I've been wanting to talk about this.
Okay. So then, great. Meaning, I'm literally at the ground floor. Like, my initial audience is gonna be like good friends, family, people I bumped into who told me I should have a podcast, and it's gonna start there. Like, meaning it's just really, my heart's desire is this, and you're helping me get started. So speak as freely as you would like.
Yeah, I grew up, I would say Protestant Christian, not in the Catholic Church. More of a looser, accepted version of Christianity. So that's where I come from. Grew up teaching Sunday school. My family's all heavily involved in the church, and something always felt disconnected for me.
Do you know what it
I
is?
didn't know exactly what it was.
Okay, sorry.
I at the time I didn't know what it was, but I always something I felt disconnected. There would be the emotional high that would come over me a lot in certain moments, but then it was fleeting, and there was a disconnect. And I moved to Miami out of South Dakota and got away from that and decided to let go of it. And it was a lot, and there's still parts of me, I'm sure, that I'm removing of that label. But yeah, I decided I wanted to let go of it. And a lot of, through that, realizing that a lot of the reason that I held on to it for so long wasn't because this like divine truth was in me, but actually a fear of going to hell. Right. Which was a fascinating thing.
And so you no longer believe in hell, or you're just not afraid to go there?
Not afraid to go there.
All right. Okay.
Which we can find through that process actually really isn't a hell. And many people that live in this place of thinking only heavenly, and that hell is so bad, it's confining them and it's restricting them, and it's actually preventing them from experiencing joy that they actually would like to experience. But because their life's lived on this shaky, balanced platform of as long as my relationship with God is okay, in the form of Jesus being like the only Son of God, and that it's actually taking away peace. And whether they realize it or not, there's shame, there's guilt, there's fear there that's running their lives that they're not even aware of.
Right. And it's there, and it's our perception of God, not necessarily what God actually is. And it just made me think of like the road to hell.
How arrogant do you have to be?
Yeah, like I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right? Exactly.
Like, I know who God is. I know what He is to a T, and I know that I'm okay because I know exactly who God is. No, you don't. I have no clue. I have no clue. I have zero clue, and I don't know how anybody actually really could. Right, yep. And that's why I don't really like. I think it's kind of a cop out for many people to over focus on the afterlife and what they believe is the truth for the afterlife, instead of actually being able to live here now in this human experience. And similar to the labels that I was talking about as far as using to justify our existence, I believe many people use their perception of the afterlife to not have to fully live here now in this experience.
100% with you. It's like as a kid, I grew up with this certain narrative of like when I was 11, 12 years old, I was already an asshole. And I just like, okay, like there was this concept in Hasidic Judaism where there's, in Kabbalistic philosophy, where the suffering that you experience in this world takes away like 60, I think there's an actual number they give, like 69 like times the suffering in the next world. Like, so a moment here, you get rid of decades of suffering, right? And I'm like, I don't, like, I won't be there. I won't feel it. So give it to me, like, get rid of the suffering now, and give it to me in the next world. I don't want to take that trade. And there's a certain by living our life, like, obviously we would like to I like Jordan Peterson's, right? Like, everybody has a vision, and it's not necessarily in the next world, of what hell looks like, what's like this horror, like what your version of hell looks like, and everybody has their conception of what heaven looks like. So meaning as archetypes, not necessarily of actual places. I mean, it's a Jungian idea where, like, okay, my heart truth being fully actualized, that's heaven, and then hell would be my heart truth being closed and masked, and just being subject to other people's perspectives, and living a life of depression and nihilism, like that, or and murderousness, or suicidal, like we all have our conceptions of heaven and hell. And I was talking about this with somebody where, like, we have a conception of, let's say, utopia. Like, we would like the world to be an ideal place, but as soon as you pursue utopia, goes back into our prior idea of, like, as soon as you pursue utopia, you're just pursuing a conception of what utopia is, and it's most definitely not what it actually is, and you'll end up squishing yourself and squishing the world, as we see with every single utopian attempt in history. But yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, like, I want to go to heaven, but you end up in hell. And I think, like, that letting go of religion in the sense of it being a dogma that seems to, like, as you experienced it, like, leads to a hell that you would not like. It seems like a good a good origin story to what you're doing with your time.
Mm-hmm. It seems also like a lot of religion, at least the way I think me and Mendel grew up, always came from a point of fear, and that fear was obviously the end goal was hell. And a lot of the motivation behind a lot of the things that we would do is like, do this here now so you don't go there, or do this here now so that you don't feel bad later on. As opposed to, like, living in the now, a lot of it was propelled through fear. At least in my education, the way I was brought up. And even when I went to Israel and I spent, years there, and that was the main motivator to, like, you don't want to be that guy in the back of, like, say, the classroom, not listening and just moping around. And you don't want to be that guy who's not successful. You don't want to be that guy that doesn't have family. You don't want to be the guy that's not married. It was always like, you don't want to be that guy, meaning always instilled with fear. And, like, for me personally, like, that never propelled me to do anything. Like, fear is not a propelling factor for me. It just isn't. Like, either because I'm not scared or because I don't care enough. But ultimately, like, a fear-based, like, solution or a fear-based motivate me to not do something, And my point being is, like, I feel like with even religion, personal life, success coaching, motivation, like, instead of I try as much as I can to not even deal with any of the, so to speak, negatives or fears like that. I just focus on what are you good at, what do you know you're good at, and kind of push that through, and that will lead you to wherever you want to or need to get to. Like, I do not, like, hold a lot of, like, that fear or the negativity or, like, the dark world, the dark side, like, a lot of value in the sense of actual working. Now, of course, you got to go through it, you got to live in it, you got to be okay with it. But I guess just the way I grew up, like, maybe I'm fearful of being fearful, Maybe I have the fear, maybe I'll feel the fear. But in my personal life, I've always been more motivated by, like, success than I have, like, you might not succeed, therefore let's go succeed.
And that's powerful, man, because a good majority of people are living in that place of just being afraid and fearful, and you've been able to develop that level of optimism, which is fucking powerful and incredible. And a lot of the foundation of many of the major religions are that, like, eventually being the fear of fear, but just the fear of not being able to go somewhere or be something. And that trickles into every other area of life. And I want to talk about this too, this element of, like, hidden inside of Christianity, that I see with many people is, like, they're very, very progressive, but then the foundation of it is, if you don't believe this, then you'll go to hell. So he's a very gracious, he's a very loving, forgiving God, as long as you believe Jesus is the center of it, right?
Exactly.
You can sin. No, actually, you can sin, right? Jesus died for your sins, right? He died for all of your bad and shortcomings. Okay, so that's okay, but you still have to make sure you believe he's the center of all of it. And to me, it just, like, blows my mind, because it's just like, that doesn't make any sense at all. If it's really pure grace, like pure divine grace in its essence, is the letting go of everything. It is. And I'm okay in and of myself, separate from any labels, separate from anything that I'm using to justify my center of okayness. But they're hiding behind this idea that grace is found from accepting Jesus as being the center of your life, but that in itself is a mere act of the absence of grace.
So it's almost, it's like the exact opposite of what Judaism is, at least the way it seems to me, is Judaism doesn't care what you believe almost. It doesn't care what you think, as long as you act a certain way. Meaning, like, whether it's the way, like, literally on a day-to-day basis, like, whether it's the Shabbat or what food you eat or when you pray, like, you just have, it's a religion of action. Like, that's why you can have, like, it's a religion of community and action. Like, I mean, obviously the belief, like, if you have it, I believe it'll be much more enriching and profound and rewarding. But it doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what you believe. Like, and it's like versus, and also I don't know, like, I just always think of the Christian, like, yeah, just like there's a certain, like, I'll accept it. I'll accept Jesus as my savior, and give a donation just in case. But then I don't really have to do anything else. So why not? Like, you don't have to denounce it. Just put a coin in the bin and you're good to go. So it doesn't seem like it demands very much. But so that makes me wonder where the guilt comes from. Like, if you don't have to, all you have to do is accept something. Where does guilt come from in Christianity?
Exactly. That's the great question, because the foundation and the premise of it is that I'd be pretty fucking scared, because I would if I was questioning my faith with Jesus and I believe that there was the true heaven and hell in the traditional sense, I was scared shitless. I was like, ooh, if my relationship is shaky with Jesus and God, then that means, like, I'll go here. Of course there's the guilt, right? Like, of course it is. And it's not guilt for something outside of themselves. It's guilt that selfishly they won't get to go to the good place. Which, what kind of relationship is that anyway? If that's my relationship with Jesus and God, is this, like, fear-based of, like, I do what I have to do secretly so I can make it to that place.
All right, and that's even,
like a horrendous relationship.
It's not just fear-based. Even the positive base of it is, like, I'm going to, it's like, imagine, forget God, like, my relationship with Mayor is like, I'm going to give Mayor certain things because he's going to give certain things back to me. And if everything was reciprocal, to me, even if it was not fear-based, it sounds horribly unideal.
It feels transactional as opposed to, you know.
Yeah. And when we break it down, it seems like getting out of it and away from it, to me, it just seems so obvious now. But when you're in it, and that's like, and you believe that your entire existence and being okay here on this earth and your okayness after your time is based off of believing something, it's very hard to even wrap your mind around some of these ideas. Right? And it's really unfortunate.
Have you read any of the existentialist philosophers like Sartre? Like, spent any time him in particular, I haven't read a lot, but the existentialist idea is that he brings it down to existence precedes essence, meaning you first exist in the world, like, without any baggage, so to speak, and you are whatever you create yourself to be. And he brings up, quotes Kierkegaard, and like how even if you have somebody telling you this is the truth, this is the will of God, and forget about that. Let's say you're Abraham and you have God speaking to you, right? Saying, Abraham, go take your son, your only son, the one that you love. As a human being, you're forced, like, we're so free that we're forced to first ask, wait, is this just a delusion? Am I hearing voices? So how do you even know that's God? And then your second question is like, wait, am I even Abraham? So in the end of the day, like, no matter what received wisdom or insight that you have, it is up to you to make the choice to live by it or not live by it. And it only has value and meaning to the degree of which you've taken it into account to the degree of which you made something of yourself or done anything. Like I thought that was like super powerful.
Yeah, you man, it's incredible to hear how much you've learned and taken the time and energy and effort to really pour into understanding some of these things. So I want to say that it's like
I'm working on now. I feel like I've been a consuming human being and observing human being for a little too long. It's the impetus for the podcast is now start to provide value and create. Like there's been this fear of like, okay, what am I gonna? I'm gonna sit up here. Someone's gonna listen. I'm gonna waste their time for an hour. Like who am I? Like I need the degree. I need the something like to validate that I'm sitting here talking or that you should listen to me. So I'm working on providing value as opposed to just taking.
I'd say screw all that. What is it, Tony Robbins? He says his degree is in results. I think it's super badass. That was super cool, him saying that, right? And really, like, so much of it is just permission that we can give ourselves to pursue what we want to pursue, right? This idea of you wanting to just be able to have these amazing conversations and pull things out of people like you've done with me today, incredibly. Like all the other stuff about your brain saying, oh, well, you know, am I giving enough value? Do I have the certifications? Do I have the knowledge base? Blah, 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 blah. Like, that's all fluff. It's all fluff. Okay. And I also want to say this is that just because you give yourself permission to pursue what you want to pursue doesn't mean you're not actively getting better. That's also a superpower, right? I can sit here and say, I'm the best coach in the world. I feel that. I'm the best coach in the world. And I'm also open to improving, right? Like you can be an incredibly intelligent person that has a lot of value to give that you're excited to share and that people need to hear regardless if you think it's valuable to them or not. And you can get better. That's the beauty of it. It's not like this, like, okay, now I am the expert. Now I give myself permission to go all the way in, right? No, it's the belief, which I was talking about with the football part of it, for me, right? If I embodied some of that deeper level belief of like, yo, I'm the best. Like, I'm the best. And like really allow myself to feel that instead of living in this place of like false humility and like, oh, but I always have to be getting better. I can't say those things. I can't feel that yet because I'm not the best, right? All that blah, blah, which got in the way of, I think, me being able to actually go as far as I could have. It took away from it. So really sinking into the energy and the idea of, yo, I can step all the way into what I want to do right now. And I can keep getting better.
Awesome. I want to ask you, you said you had 3 lives, right? First was your football career, and now you're in your coaching or confidant career. What life? What was your second life?
Ooh, the transition between those two.
What was that like?
My Tarzan phase, my long hair phase. Dude, it was oh my gosh, man. That was, you want to talk about the nothing. Like, I did whatever I wanted to do. I grew my hair out super long. I was a stripper for 3 months. Like, bro, I did like I did whatever I wanted to do. Anything. Because there was an identity of who I believed that I thought I was back when I was living my first life, you know, being a very inspiring person in South Dakota, where I'm from, playing football at the level that I did, breaking out of that idea and moving to Miami. I was like, let me just be whoever I want to be in every moment. Screw it. Here we go. I smoked more weed. Did a lot of shit that was like interesting. I started modeling. I told before I left Miami, I told my cousin, I said, if I ever post pictures with my shirt off, you can slap me in the face. Now I do underwear modeling.
How many slaps have you
Right?
gotten?
Oh, not yet. I'm hoping he doesn't remember. That's what I'm hoping. But now it's just like it's permission to let that second life was just like a lot of just blah. Like I stopped working out really hard for a period of time. I just was doing yoga. It was just a lot of like the antithesis to the first life. It was like kind of the opposite.
It's so interesting to me how everybody, like the antithesis to whatever, there is like a an archetype or a like the long hair, the drugs, the sex. Like there's a certain place that we all go when we're uninhibited. Like that looks very similar across human beings. Like if you were to just to let things go, and yeah, just an observation. It's like meaning like success seems a little bit yeah, there's like the behaviors and okay, they wake up on time, they work out, they're good looking, they're social. Like but like the it takes a lot of active effort to get there. But while like when you just let go, it seems like we all fall into this base human that looks very similar to the guy next to us. Um, wondering why you think that is.
Oh man, I have no idea.
Best
I
answer.
have no idea, but you're right. Like you're right, and that's where it can be scary because so much of religion and constructs keep things orderly because we feel like they have to be orderly. But really, if we let go of some of these constructs, there might be a little more chaos. It might feel like chaos, right? When I'm in the middle of like going through my transition where I am becoming the opposite of everything that I was, that can feel a little chaotic. It can feel a little scary of like, who am I? I don't know who the heck I am. But through that emerges order, right? Inside of the chaos emerges order. And a lot of orders created, a lot of religions created, these contracts are created to avoid chaos. Okay.
Right.
But the beauty of a forest fire is that when it all burns down, something beautiful emerges and grows back up.
Right.
And so if we can sit in the discomfort of allowing chaos, okay, and not trying to control everything and make the world this utopic, glorious place, order might actually beautifully naturally emerge.
Right. And it's also like if you let the forest fire burn when it happens as opposed to like preventing forest fires as your life's aim, what inevitably happens as you see in California is you put all this effort into preventing forest fires and all of a sudden there's so much shit that needs to be burnt that now there's too much of it, and when it lights it's incredibly destructive as opposed to a fire that will burn and it'll be chaotic but it'll burn out and allow for something beautiful. This is a cool analogy. What are you thinking, Mayor?
I'm listening. There's so much to take in, honestly.
You always have what to say.
I don't know, maybe sometimes I'm trying to focus on more on, letting things come in, not just always saying.
That's good.
Chaos right here, like the foundation of so much of pain that we experience is our inability to allow and acknowledge and accept the chaos. And not just as the individual, but as a society. And the more fragile we become, the less resistant we become to chaos, the higher the chips will stack up, but the greater the fall will be. So that's really the foundation of almost everything that I teach and talk about is permission to accept, acknowledge, go into, and not be afraid of the chaos. And if we did that, it'd be great. I have visions, and this is the first time I'm saying this on a podcast, of me standing in front of people saying, I want you to stand up. I want you to turn to the person next to you. I want you to tell them to fuck off. I don't want you to give them a hug. I don't want you to give them a high five. I want you to look at them and tell them to fuck off. Okay? And I want the person that just got told to fuck off, tell them to fuck off back. And I want you both just to be in that. Fuck off. You fuck off. No, you fuck off. Okay. And we continually go back and forth, and we can have this dialogue where we're potentially hurting each other's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And through that actually emerges greater understanding. Like me and my best friend, we just say, like, we'll randomly message each other and just tell each other to fuck off.
Healthy.
And it's so funny because there's this lighthearted like playfulness in it. Where it's like, why and even the word fuck. Like I say fuck in some of my Facebook posts and like people, all hell breaks loose. I'm like, it's a word.
Yeah, well, we're not gonna go to how extreme people could be about certain words. You saw what happened to Joe Rogan.
Right. right? And Joe, he's doing his thing, man. I love it. He's doing his thing. But really, it's the inability to be able to sit in the tension of there being a chaotic situation, or we perceive as chaotic.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the really cool part about, I think, about my coaching, is that my space is a space where I'm going to say whatever comes up in me to you, and I expect the same from you. And so we might go in, right? We might be going back and forth, pop, 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 but we both know at the end of it, there's going to be something there that emerges, greater levels of truth. And unless that emotional button's pushed, a lot of the times it's difficult to be able to create change. That's why talking doesn't always do the trick, because there's not an emotional response. When there's an emotional response, that a lot of the times can create space for transformation. And sometimes I'll poke the bear a little bit to get that emotional response, for there to be space for that vulnerableness, that vulnerability. I don't know if vulnerableness is a word. Vulnerability of being in an emotionally naked place. Exposed. Whoa. Instead of having to be fragile like crazy and everybody's walking on eggshells, what if we could all just like be open about things?
It's personally on the flip side. I feel like I'm somewhat addicted to the chaos and things not being figured out and things not being in order. Like, and as soon as they seem to like fall into place and be in order, I'm like, no, that can't be it. Like, I don't want to limit myself to that, or I don't want to be like, that can't be what defines me. I can't, like, psychologists know, like, anytime I feel like I get my finger on what it is that I'm interested in, I also have this self-destructive tendency to be like, fuck it all, because I like the chaos. There's something, I feel more alive when, whether it's anger or upset or chaotic, like, there is a certain rawness that is there that isn't, and just feeling good.
Is there something wrong with that?
It seems to be destructive. I mean, like, there's this destructiveness. Like, I would like to be able to do that and it be constructive in some way as opposed to destructive.
Why do you think that it's not constructive? Like, what have you seen happen in your life to make it imply that it's destructive to you?
I turn off. I become less engaged afterwards.
Which does what to you? When you turn off, you become less engaged. What does that do to you that you're perceiving as negative?
I pursue things that I would label as escapes, like to be distracted from my reality as opposed to being present. Like, I like the destructive, but then sitting in it, hitting the nothingness within the destructiveness is somewhere I have a hard time being. Like I don't want to be comfortable, but as soon as I become uncomfortable, I like shut off from the discomfort.
What if you could give yourself permission to stay in the discomfort? Because I don't want to make it about the action. I don't want to make it about the action of the chaos that you're creating. Okay, I don't want to attach to that. But I do want to tap into is you being able to sit in what it feels like in that forest fire. Okay, because you can light the match and maybe you can watch the forest burn. You can walk away and not have to like think about it and then come back later and be like, oh, okay, that was the aftermath. But what if you could sit in the tension of being part of the burning? And I want you to be in that. I want you to allow yourself to be in that space of the aftermath and staying in it and sinking into it. Because actually you avoiding that might be the thing that's preventing you from shifting and changing.
Right. Meaning, like, I do want to be successful, be good at something, or recognizable as something. Like, I do, like, that drives me. Like, to be recognized, to be not necessarily infamous or
Recognize
famous.
yourself.
Yeah, meaning being recognized. Yeah, like there is definitely that external validation, but also for me to perceive myself as of worth and of value. Like, meaning, which it's, I don't know where, like, how do you measure it? Meaning, there's feeling a certain way, and then there's how you're perceived. Like, if so everybody looks, like, when you walk up and down the street and everybody kind of gives you a cringy face and you don't give any reaction to it, you might have just found out that you had mustard all over your cheek. right? Like, and like if you would have reacted or responded to a degree of what, maybe asked, what is it that, why are you cringing? Like, it's because you have mustard all over your face. Like, it could be helpful, but versus turning that voice off and just, I don't know. I don't really have a question. I'm just bouncing.
Sink into it. When your mind wants to go intellectual and escape, stay down in it. Because I'm sure you might have a tendency to move out of it through the intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could stay down in it, stay down in the feeling of discomfort of not knowing in that space. You know what I mean by that or no?
I know exactly what you mean by it. I feel the need to communicate it, and that already steps it into the intellectual, as opposed to just like shut up. Like, I go to my therapist. Go to my therapist, and he's just like, shut. Like, he's like, can you shut up? Like, he literally asked me, can you shut up? And I pause, and I'm like, shit. Like, and then like I pause, and then I'm like, shit. I don't think I can stay shut up for another second. There's something else on my mind that I'd like to talk about. And then I crack up trying to stay silent. Like, I'm like, yeah.
And so here's the thing. If you could sink into it long enough, that cracking up and that laughing might actually turn into something else.
Got to try it.
If you could sit in the tension past the, right, if you could identify the sequence of things that happen before you break out of it and push past that, right, you can use the mental there, right? Well, what are the steps? Okay, well, I'm quiet. I can hear my brain saying all the things that it wants to say. And then when I realize that doesn't work, it actually goes to a place of kind of cracking up. And then eventually it goes to a place of surrender, saying, you know what, I'm just going to say something, and I laugh about it. Okay. But if you could identify those things and say, no, 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 and keep going deeper into that. Okay. Because that's the pattern that your brain has to not have to go into that.
Mm-hmm.
And you identify with those things and think they're you, but actually they're just mechanisms to prevent yourself having to feel.
Yeah.
It's like that laughter is like your first recognition of like, oh my God, like I've not done this before. Like, oh my God, like, wait, are my thoughts different? Like, am I really thinking differently? Is this possible? Like, are all those thoughts I've had before, are they not true? Is it not real? Like, that's almost like, to me, like what that laughter means. It's like laughing yourself. It's like, oh my God, like I'm an idiot. You know, like, oh my God, like what have I been thinking? Like, what am I doing? And then like you laugh. It's like your first recognition of like, whoa, like everything that I've been thinking about, like it's gonna be okay. Like, let me just get, and like as Keyen saying, like, you know, just get deeper and deeper from laughter, and might come to, you know, silence, to crying, to different stuff. But like as you go down or up, whichever you want to look at it, you know, you unlock, like it seems like a lot of the time is like unlocking parts of us that are already there. We just don't let ourselves go there. Like it's there. Just let yourself go into that moment of being there.
That's it. And you know the phrase, the saying, it goes, you got to get up to get down. It's the opposite. You got to go down to get up, right? What I say is our capacity to experience joy comes down to our willingness to go down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like a slingshot, man. It's a slingshot.
Like it's like we were talking about before. Like that's so hard for me because like I feel so much of my education has been from the down to up. That now I'm just up. Like I'm just pure optimism. Much before, like just pure optimism. Never looking at the negative. Never looking at the down. Just forward thinking, success thinking, influence thinking. Like that's just like what I go through. And yeah, and I'm sure like there's things like I definitely like I'm like my way of dealing with, I would say, stress issues, emotional, physical, whatever it might be, has always been to open up the rug, sweep it under, close it back down, and move forward on. You know, like it's definitely been more of an, as I think I've started meditating way more, these things just come up out of nowhere. And I'm like, what? Like I thought I swept that like a year ago. And like, yeah, dude, you swept it like under the carpet it's sitting in your living room. Like your living room's still there, and so is the carpet, and so is all that shit you fucking put right under there. And like it's fearful because like it's like I've definitely gone to dark places before, and I'm almost scared to get to those dark places again. But it's definitely like
that's it,
pushing through, and like I don't know, man. It's definitely.
And here's the thing too, Mayor, is bro, it's having someone to be able to help facilitate that for you, man. Like that, I've gone through exorcisms myself, like deep emotional purges, man, like deep. And now it's incredible because my association with it now is one of when I give myself permission to go there, I come up way higher. So when I go into my calls every week, for me, every week I cry. Every week. Every week because I have that relationship with that now. Every time I go down into it, I come higher out of it. And so the more you can practice getting into it, the less scary it gets, and the more you can actually use it to your benefit. Right. And so what does that mean? Well, the hell actually is what? Your heaven.
Right. We probably should be wrapping up soon, but
Yep.
it reminds me of the story of like the kid who says, "Mom, there's a dragon in the house," and there's no such thing as dragons. And the kid, okay, and then the kid says, "Mom, there's a dragon in the house." And now the dragon's getting a little bigger. There's no such thing as dragons. They sweep it under the rug. Sweep it under the rug. Mom, there's a dragon in my room. Like, mom's like, there's no such thing as dragons, honey. Till eventually the dragon's so big it breaks its wings out of the house and flies away with the house. And that's only then do you recognize that there are mom. Oh, now I believe in dragons. Meaning sweeping things under the carpet, they inevitably just grow and grow. So as far as somebody who is fear motivated, or fear sensitive, like that fear of unspoken things, of unspoken like of resentments or whatever it is in my like with my wife or with friends, like that fear of it getting too big, is what like I can't keep things in. Like I have a certain like destructiveness, like meaning I'll get in the argument because it needs to happen, which is a positive trait. It could be a little too intrusive sometimes, but like because I obviously I like to figure out the aim of what it could look like as opposed to what I don't want it to look like, to go in tandem with that. But having the hell like of the dragon flying away with your house, which is what will happen. Like the whole California forest fire will happen if you don't do the small burns. Like that is the inevitable. So it's good to
Absolutely
let it out.
And also too, man, like, dude, you can actually ride the dragon and go for a sick, awesome time with it, right? Like if you identify the dragon in the house and you grow it and you raise it, you can ride that thing around and like blow fire all over the place, right? That's the part about it. It's like it's actually not that scary, and we can end on this. Is that a lot of these things that Mary you mentioned earlier with being like kind of scary because if you've been in a dark place before, going back to that darkness, your previous association with that was one of very scary. So of course your tendency isn't to go back into it. But I don't know if you guys seen the Monsters Inc. Have you guys seen the movie Monsters Inc.?
When I was a kid.
Where so a long time ago, Mike and Sully are in a room, and they're deathly afraid of the kids, right? It's the door shut, and there's like banging and scratching and clawing on the door, and they're like with each other, and they're freaking out. They're hiding on the bed. They're like, "Oh, what is it? What is it? We're scared." And then they go up to the door, they inch slowly closer and closer, and then they stop and they see the handles being turned, and it turns and it opens, and it's the little girl. He goes, "Kitty," and they're like, "Ah!" and they freak out and they're scared and they run away, right? And that's a lot of the times what it actually is when we learn to be able to have that kind of relationship with that part of ourselves that feels so scary. Is that once we get acquainted with it, like I was referring to earlier, it actually we realize that it's just poof. It's actually nothing. But the fear and scaredness of going into it is what creates this bigger hype around it.
It's like we create our own like fear that's not even there. Like it's a created fear that we create within ourselves, and once we actually approach it, it's like, oh, that's what it is. But the whole leading to get there, that's like the process. Like we're talking about process to get somewhere. We said like a process to get somewhere might be even more pleasurable than getting to that place. The exact same way, the process of getting to the pain that you have to deal with, is probably scarier than the actual thing itself. It kind of works both ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Awesome. So yeah, I think we should wrap it up. We've made it a little past the 2-hour mark. So thank you very much for joining, Keyen, taking your time. It's very valuable. I've seen your website. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope we can do this again sometime, a little further down the line. And yeah, where should people look you up if they are the diehards and made it to the end of this podcast and would like to know where to find you?
Yeah, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you facilitating this space, and I'm excited to see you continue to do this and bring more and more people on and really blossom in this because you're really fucking good at it. So you're welcome, and I wanted to say that.
Thank you.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can find me on my website, keyenlage.com. I'm sure you'll put the spelling of that in the show notes. Or you can find me on Instagram as well, keyen.lage. So
Awesome. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, guys.
all right, guys.
Thank you, Mayor, for for making this happen. Mayor is why this happened. Like, meaning I was like, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll make it perfect. It'll all no. Mayor's like, I have somebody to talk to. You'd have a great conversation, and I'd like to thank you, Mayor, for making this happen.
Yeah, thank you.
You only ever help yourself, my man.
Awesome. All right.
All right, guys.
Well,
Take it
yeah.
easy. Have a good one, guys.
Hey, Mayor.
What's up, buddy? I'm playing the regular line.
All right.